Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's product education webinar. My name is Dr. Stephen Moore. I live down here in Jupiter, Florida. And today we actually have Rebecca Major, who's going to be doing some of the training today. We're so happy, Rebecca, that you're here with us today. Thanks for taking some time out. I know you've got a super busy schedule with everything that you do with Pharmanex. And for those of you that haven't met Rebecca, she's been with Pharmanex now for 8 years. And she's the Pharmanex Research and Development Communication and Education Manager. For short, she's actually Tanner Gibbs' boss. And so we all love Tanner, and we know Rebecca's going to do a great job here, and we're looking forward to learning from you, Rebecca. And so what we're going to do here today is we're going to first learn about Cortitrol. We're all under tremendous amounts of stress. Our environment is more stressful than it's ever been. And, as much as we would love to do meditation and yoga and all these other things to decrease stress, sometimes we need a little bit of help. And I know that when my mom was a nursery school teacher, the Cortitrol product was one of her favorite products to utilize. And also a lot of the other teachers liked it as well, because it just seems to take the edge off, keeps people focused. And Rebecca's gonna talk with us here for about 15 or 20 minutes or so, a little bit about stress, and a little bit about the products and the ingredients. So thanks for being with us today, Rebecca.
Before I jump into talking about Cortitrol, I just wanted to share a little bit about why I love working with Pharmanex. And a lot of that has to do with the science. Pharmanex is a very science-oriented company. We have over 75 scientists globally, and we place a big emphasis on science-backed products and quality. And so that just makes it really easy to share what I love about these products and what makes them so amazing. So we'll jump in today by talking first about Cortitrol. Cortitrol is a science-based solution to stress that works by helping to support healthy cortisol levels. And I'm going to start off by giving a little bit of background about stress and cortisol, just to kind of lay a foundation. As we all are fully aware, stress is very common. 80% of workers report feeling stressed on the job, and that's only work-related stress. And it can come from, relationships or any number of other factors. And we all react to stress a little bit differently. Men tend to experience greater psychological responses, whereas women tend to have more emotional responses. But regardless of how we're affected, having too much anxiety and stress tends to destroy productivity and focus, and that's never going to be a good thing. So let's talk about what cortisol actually is. Cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone. So it's what we release in response to stress. It's called the fight or flight response. And it does play a critical role in survival, and has a lot of other functions in the body. But as we know, if too much of a good thing is definitely not more of a good thing. So when we're under stress, the hypothalamus in our brain releases corticotropin releasing hormone, which then triggers the anterior pituitary glands to release a different hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and that in turn triggers the adrenal cortex to produce cortisol. Now, once that happens, cortisol then has a negative feedback loop back up to the hypothalamus and tells it to turn down its release of corticotropin releasing hormone, so that you don't get this upward spiral continually. It's called a negative feedback loop to prevent too much from being released. And when it works fantastically well. It's a beautifully balanced system. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work. So this is what it's supposed to look like. Cortisol levels tend to be lowest in the middle of the night. And then as we start to prepare to wake up, they go up, peaking at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and then slowly dropping back down throughout the day. And they bottom out when we're asleep, which makes sense. However, when we undergo stressful events during the day, it can cause spikes in that cortisol level. And when we have chronic stress, it can actually dysregulate this whole graph so that it is completely different. It could be higher or lower or flatlined because our bodies just don't know how to respond to stress anymore. And that's one of the big problems with chronic stress over time. So this is kind of what we're aiming for, this nice peak and then decrease throughout the day. That's what the body's supposed to be doing. And that's what it does do when we are only experiencing acute stress and not chronic stress throughout the day, or throughout our lives, rather. Acute stressors are short-lived, sudden, and they go away. Our bodies are well equipped to handle that. It's things like, well, in current days, it's things like driving in stop and go traffic, speaking in public. Maybe you have a deadline that you're trying to meet, perhaps an athletic event you're participating in. And once it's over, and the stress goes away, no problem. Our bodies can handle that, not an issue. Chronic stress is a little bit of a bigger challenge. They're longer lived issues, they're ongoing. They might be financial insecurity or conflict with in relationships that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, or maybe ongoing health challenges. And they just drag on, and our bodies are not equipped to handle them effectively. And it leads to a lot of health issues. So some of the effects of stress vary depending on whether this is an acute response or a chronic response. So when we feel an acute response to stress, several things happen. The most noticeable is an increased heart rate, accompanied by rapid breathing and a jolt of energy. We tend to be less aware of pain, and that can be quite useful if you're like in a life-threatening situation. Less useful, our digestive system tends to slow down since that's not really important short term. And blood sugar spikes to give a quick energy source to our muscles. Now, those makes a lot of sense when you're in a situation that causes acute stress. So for example, if you're being chased by a bear, you want to run away fast, you need a lot of energy, you need it right now, but then once you escape, that all goes away, and that's fine. So that's situations where you require quick thinking, active reflexes, fast responses, that kind of thing. However, when stressor doesn't go away, this turns into a chronic response, and that's where the problems really start. If your digestive system slowed down and your blood sugar's gone up and your body's telling you, you know, we need a lot of energy available right now, what that ends up causing is weight gain long term. Your body ends up storing more fat whenever possible, energy levels drop, body's not releasing fat as an energy source. That's going to further encourage weight gain. Particularly belly fat or visceral fat is strongly correlated with chronic stress, and they think that's researchers think that's related to the way fat is treated in someone who has chronic stress. And of course, having a rapid heart rate short term is fine, but long term, that's going to cause anxiety and sleep problems. If you're constantly hyped up on cortitrol or cortisol levels are high, and you're really anxious about something, that's going to contribute to more sleep problems, which then is going to cause more stress on the body, and it's a vicious downward cycle. And none of those effects are actually beneficial to us long term. And that's the real difference between acute and chronic stress.
Yeah, we see this a lot, Rebecca, is people have a difficulty sleeping. They don't have energy the next day because they're not rested, and they grab something to squeeze their adrenals, like a Red Bull or a Monster, and they go in this repetitive cycle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in addition to that, they're sitting in front of their computer screens or their phones, and that's causing cortisol to be released as well. And so we've got this vicious cycle that people need help with. They need to really break this cycle, and it's an issue with so many people. Half the population here, in the US, as you said, is under chronic stress. And so I know you've studied this quite a bit, and I forgot to mention this in your introduction. Your degree is actually in neuroscience from BYU. So
Mm-hmm.
I know in this, we've got a short amount of time here, and you're condensing this information. And so again, we're looking forward to learning some more here. So
Yeah, absolutely. It really does turn into this vicious cycle, and it feeds on itself. So there's a few different solutions. Most of them are common sense. Some of them are more easily applied than others. Obviously, trying to get more sleep is going to help break part of that cycle. Moderate exercise is going to help as well. Meditation to really try and distance yourself from some of those stressors and give perspective can be really beneficial, but it's hard to find time to do all of those things. And then, of course, good nutrition, we always need good nutrition for everything. It's going to provide balance to our bodies and give it all the nutrients it needs to run effectively. But again, a lot of people know they need to eat better and don't. So that's kind of where supplementation comes in. It's not a replacement for some of these other solutions, but it is another option, especially when they're not able to implement all of the other options too. In addition to that, nature provides a wonderful selection of amazing compounds that help with cortisol, sorry, and are not really found in our diet anyway. So even if you did do all of these things, Cortitrol is an option to provide additional support. So with that, let's talk about Cortitrol specifically. It is a double action formula in that it works in two ways. It helps with cortisol control, and it also helps with stress management on the other end. What does that mean exactly? Well, when a person is stressed, we talked about how it triggers the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis with those three glands to release more cortisol. So if we want to impact that stress response in our body and control the cortisol, we need to do it by balancing cortisol levels so they don't spike throughout the day. Remember, we're going for that nice graph that peaks at 8 and then slowly declines throughout the day. So that's kind of what we're going for. And to that end, we have included several ingredients that help promote healthy cortisol levels in a variety of different situations. On the other end of things, if we can manage the stressors that are coming in and respond better to them, there's going to be fewer spikes and variability in those cortisol levels to begin with. So aside from the other strategies like sleep and exercise and whatnot, we also have ingredients in Cortitrol to help with that aspect as well. So let's dive in and kind of do a deep dive on what each of those ingredients are and how they work. So Cortitrol is formulated with 5 standardized ingredients to support healthy cortisol levels and to help with stress management. First, it has green tea extract, which is standardized to 35% theanine. And theanine is a really interesting amino acid because it's naturally occurring in green tea leaves and it has some unique properties that aren't associated with other amino acids. And the main thing is it's a non-sedating relaxant. What that means is it doesn't make you tired, but it helps you relax. And it does that, we think, by helping the brain's production of alpha brainwaves. So when you're going throughout your normal everyday life, working or talking to people or whatever, your brain is primarily producing beta brainwaves, which are pretty rapid. If you were to go in a quiet room and sit with your eyes closed and just relax, your brain starts producing alpha brainwaves, which are associated more with awake but calm, relaxed, and resting. So green tea, especially theanine from green tea, helps accomplish that even if you're not actually sitting in a room with your eyes closed. So really, really interesting research on that.
Rebecca, I think it's also important to mention that that's a decaffeinated green tea extract.
Yes, absolutely. There's not any caffeine in there because that kind of negates the point. The second ingredient is plant sterols, which are standardized to 38% beta-sitosterol. So that's a compound naturally occurring in plants, and it's beta-sitosterol specifically is often used by athletes to help manage the immune and stress responses following intense exercise. So say they ran an ultra marathon, generally speaking, if you're going to be doing really intense exercise like that, there is an immune impact, and there's also, of course, a stress impact on the body. So research indicates that beta-sitosterol helps with that by managing cortisol levels to keep them in a more normal range after such intense exercise. And it is extrapolated that it applies not just to exercise, but also to other situations, although most of the research on this particular ingredient is done post-exercise. The next ingredient is magnolia bark. The magnolia bark we use in Cortitrol is standardized to 40% hunakinol, which is a compound naturally occurring. That's actually very high for a dietary supplement. Most supplements that have magnolia bark are generally about 1.5% hunakinol. So that is one thing that kind of sets us apart. Honokyle is known for its anxiolytic properties. That means it helps with anxiety type symptoms. Also, there's research on magnolia bark that shows it can help reduce cortisol levels as well. So it kind of works on both ends of that equation that we talked about before. There's some really interesting research too on magnolia bark and its neuroprotective properties, which probably contribute to its effects on cortisol management and its anti-anxiety management as well. The fourth ingredient is phosphatidylserine. It's a phospholipid that is naturally occurring in plants. It does come from soy. Ours doesn't actually come from soy, but it is naturally occurring in soy. So phosphatidylserine is a phospholipid that is concentrated in the cells of the brain. It plays a role in muscle metabolism and also in brain health. And it's been shown to modulate cortisol production, especially after exercise, but also in other situations as well. And the last ingredient is called epimedium. It's a medicinal herb. There's about 40 different varieties. We're using Epimedium coreanum, but it's a medicinal herb that's been studied for its adaptogen-like effects on the body. So that means it helps with increasing energy levels, but reducing cortisol levels at the same time. So we've done one published clinical study on Cortitrol back in 2005. It's on PubMed if you want to look it up, but I'm going to go over the main results of it here. So in this study, it's a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled crossover design. So it was done on 20 males, 20 men that were given both Cortitrol as well as a vitamin mineral blend. So B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. And they took the product for 1 week and then underwent a high-intensity resistance exercise protocol during which we tested cortisol levels just before, during, and after. And then there was a washout period, and then we switched the groups so that everyone got to take it. But the graph here shows the results of that study. You can see the black line is the placebo and the open dots are the Cortitrol. And the Cortitrol significantly reduced cortisol levels at several different time points during the study, but more importantly, it significantly reduced the entire area under the curve throughout the study. So just goes to show that Cortitrol does in fact reduce cortisol levels, although our legal department will not let us make that official claim. We have to say it balances cortisol levels instead. All right, so who should use this product? This is primarily for people who are stressed, anxious, find it hard to focus, or generally just feeling run down. It's also great if you're not getting enough sleep at night. As we talked about briefly earlier, if you don't get enough sleep, then that's going to cause stress on the body, leading to spiking cortisol levels, which then leads to more stress, and it's this vicious cycle. So Cortitrol obviously does not replace getting enough sleep, but it does help mitigate the negative effects of not getting enough sleep. It's also a really excellent product for someone who is trying to lose weight, especially if that weight loss or if that weight gain that they experienced is linked with stress, a high stress lifestyle. If someone is under a lot of stress and they're trying to limit caloric intake to lose weight, the Cortitrol will help to manage the stress aspect of their weight issue and help to reduce belly fat as a result. So the last thing I wanted to highlight really quickly is that this is a product that was formulated for adults. We haven't tested it in children, so we do recommend it specifically for adults in these situations. And there we have it. That's Cortitrol. It supports healthy cortisol levels and stress management, and it's made with quality standardized ingredients to ensure optimal benefits for anyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca.